When the floodwaters fell, the river gave back what it had taken, and one of them wasn't done yet. It began after 3 days of rain, not the kind of rain you plan around, the kind you survive. By Sunday morning, the Vermilion River had swallowed half of Brookhaven Parish. Fields turned to lakes, cattle floated in fence lines, pickup trucks sat half-submerged like forgotten toys. But what the locals remembered most wasn't the destruction. It was what came after, when the water drained away. Brookhaven Sheriff's Deputy Alan Reese was the first to spot the bumper. It was just after dawn on a Wednesday. The storm had finally passed, the sky a dull, bruised gray. He was walking the riverbank where the flood had ripped through the old levee when he saw it, a glint of chrome sticking out of the mud. At first, he thought it was just debris, but when he crouched down and brushed the silt away, he realized he was staring at the tail fin of an old sedan, a 1970s Buick, maybe older, buried nose first in the riverbank. By noon, more were found. A total of 12 cars unearthed by the retreating water, some stacked on top of each other, some upright, some rusted to the frame. The oldest dated back to 1969. The newest, a 2004 Chevy Malibu. Every single one had been reported stolen or missing at some point over the past 5 decades. But the 13th wasn't on any list. It was found at sunset, a mile downstream, half sunk in the reeds. A 1998 Mercury Sable, dark green, its body still intact. When tow trucks tried to pull it from the riverbed, they realized it wasn't rusted in. The engine was somehow sealed, the interior dry. And the strangest part, when they hooked up the winch and moved it, the headlights flickered on. At first, the men laughed it off. Some kind of short circuit, maybe. But then the engine coughed. Once, twice, and started. The car idled for almost 2 full minutes. No key in the ignition. Sheriff Reese shut it off himself, removing the battery cables. But when he did, he saw the dashboard clock. It read 7:42 a.m., April 17th, 1998. Frozen. That was the exact time the driver, a man named Calvin Marin, had disappeared 27 years earlier. Calvin Marin wasn't famous, but everyone in Brookhaven knew the story. He was a contractor, married, 1 daughter, who'd been last seen leaving a job site in April 1998. His car, a green Mercury Sable, had never been recovered. The working theory at the time was that he'd driven into the river during a heavy storm. They searched for weeks, found nothing. His wife moved away a year later. His daughter never came back. So when his car reappeared nearly 3 decades later, pristine and still humming, Sheriff Reese reopened the file. Forensics handled it like a crime scene. The doors unlocked easily. Inside, no decay, no mold, no water damage. In the cup holder sat a styrofoam coffee cup, still intact, printed with the logo of a diner that had closed in 2003. The passenger seat held a folded newspaper, the Brookhaven Ledger, April 17, 1998, and in the ashtray, a set of car keys. But there was one more thing, the police scanner microphone from a patrol car coiled neatly around the gearshift. That's what made Reese pause. Marin hadn't worked for law enforcement. So whose scanner was it? When investigators opened the glove box, they found an audio cassette labeled Tapes Number 3. Reese sent it to the lab, assuming it was an old mixtape. It wasn't. The tape began with faint static, wind maybe, then the sound of tires on gravel, and a voice. Male, calm, steady. "If you find this, then I didn't make it out. They said the ground was moving, that it wasn't safe, but I can't just leave them." Then a long silence, followed by 3 short knocks, metal on metal. "If they ask, tell them I tried." Click. End of tape. The state brought in a forensic historian, Dr. Elaine Porter, to trace the other 12 vehicles. 8 matched missing persons cases, most between 1970 and 1999. 2 had been linked to known criminals who fled warrants. 1, a delivery van, was unregistered but still had crates of church pamphlets in the back. And 1, the oldest, a '69 Ford Galaxy, had been officially recovered in 1980, yet the car was right there, with its VIN still visible. That's when they realized something deeper. Each of the 12 cars corresponded to a period of flooding in Brookhaven's history. Every major flood between 1970 and 2004, 1 car resurfaced each time. But the 13th had never appeared before. It had been there all along, perfectly preserved, waiting. The flood had carved deep into the riverbank, exposing a layer of clay not seen in decades. When geologists surveyed the area, they found something odd. The soil beneath the Mercury was compacted from below, as if something had risen up and pushed the car to the surface, not washed it out. At that depth, nearly 12 feet down, that was impossible, unless something beneath it had moved. 2 miles upstream stood the remains of Miller Farm, abandoned since 1999 after a fire destroyed the main house. The flood had scoured away part of its foundation. Underneath, search crews found what looked like the entrance to a storm cellar. Inside were rows of sealed jars, dozens, each filled with murky river water and small fragments of metal. When cataloged, the fragments matched car parts, bolts, latches, keys, and one name tag, rusted but legible, Calvin Marin, Marin Construction LLC. When the lab re-examined the cassette from Marin's car, they isolated a faint low-frequency hum underneath the knocks. It wasn't engine noise, it was running water, consistent with flow recorded near a submerged culvert. And behind it, almost imperceptibly, a second voice, female, whispering. He stayed. The analyst described it as background bleed, but Reese didn't believe it. He knew that voice. Marin's wife, Dana, had been interviewed in '98. Her final words in the case file: "If he stayed, it's because someone told him to." Within weeks, Brookhaven Parish became a media storm. Reporters from Baton Rouge and Shreveport flooded in. Locals gathered at the levee, watching as cranes lifted car after car from the mud. Most were skeletal, stripped to the frame, glass long gone. But the Mercury remained untouched, cordoned off behind tape. The sheriff's office refused to say whether any human remains had been found inside. But one investigator, off the record, said the driver's seatbelt had been buckled. No one wanted to imagine what that meant. On the evening of May 14th, the flood sirens sounded again. A second storm front moved in, unexpected. Lightning ripped across the plain. Reese and his team were still working the riverbank when the generator lights went out. For a full minute, everything went black except the glow from the Mercury's dashboard, now reconnected for examination. The clock on its dash began to move. Not forward, backward. It ticked from 7:42 to 7:41, then 7:40, and stopped. When power returned, the car was off, but the radio emitted 3 faint knocks. After the second flood receded, a final sweep of the site uncovered a second cassette, half buried near the Miller Farm cellar. It contained a continuation of the first recording. Marin's voice again. "The road's gone, water's higher now. If you hear this, don't come back here, not for me." They didn't all drive here, some were brought. Then, faintly, the sound of a car engine idling. She said the river remembers. Static. End. The state's final report listed 13 vehicles, 11 victims identified, and no evidence of foul play. It concluded that the flood had uncovered a historical pattern of automotive submersion events consistent with natural disaster displacement. Unofficially, Sheriff Reese quit the following month. When a local reporter asked why, he simply said, "Because cars don't start themselves underwater." Today, the stretch of river where the Mercury was found is fenced off. Locals call it the Lot of 13. Fishermen avoid it. Farmers swear their engines die when they drive near it. And every spring, when the rains return, the water there refuses to rise, even when the rest of the parish floods. They say the ground still breathes, small bubbles rising from the clay like exhalations. One man claimed he saw light shining from beneath the water one night. Another said he heard a car door close after dark. The sheriff's office no longer comments on any of it, but the new deputy keeps a photo of the Mercury in his office. Under it, he's written a date, April 17th, 1998. And one question: who started the car? If you drive along Highway 17 through Brookhaven Parish today, you'll see a bend in the road where the trees never grow back. That's where the tow trucks pulled the Mercury from the mud. Locals still leave flowers there. And sometimes, when the wind is still, you can hear a faint clicking sound, like a key turning in an ignition. This was the story of the flood that revealed 12 cars, and one still running. If this story left you wondering how deep the past can stay buried, make sure to subscribe to Hard Tells, where we uncover the stories time tried to erase and the ones that won't stay gone. Because some things don't sink. They wait.